Now I'm pleased to introduce our next item on the agenda called Chat with Pam Heatherington, with Kathy Neset, who will lead the discussion. Pam is ExxonMobil's America's General Manager and the Denbury CEO. She oversees a large portfolio of operated and non-operated assets spanning the United States from the North Slope of Alaska to the offshore of Gulf Coast. Pam holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Alberta. She currently lives in Houston with her husband and 2 children. We all know Kathy, but Kathy is the president of Neset, a company that provides well site geological, geosteering, and engineering services to the oil industry. She is past chairman of the North Dakota Petroleum Council and was inducted in the North Dakota Petroleum Council Hall of Fame in 2015. I'm looking forward to learning much from them, and welcome ladies to the stage.
Well, Todd, thank you very much. We are so pleased to be here, excited to join. You know, I look at the annual meeting. This is the time where our full membership comes together. And for us to be able to talk a little bit, Pam, it's going to be great. Yesterday afternoon at our board of directors meeting, our very own Director of Department of Mineral Resources, Nathan Anderson, started his comments by saying he was privileged to be here, privileged to work in this industry. And I feel the same way. It's just an honor to be here, you know, with everybody and to be sharing Pam's story. So Pam, how about a little bit of the story of how you made it here to the Bakken with us?
Okay, perfect. Well, I did get introduced a little bit there, but I'm Canadian, Alberta girl, born and raised. Like mentioned, I graduated from the University of Alberta with a mechanical engineering degree, and I started my career with ExxonMobil in the Calgary office back in 2003. I spent the first few years in technical roles, reservoir engineering, subsurface engineering, even some facilities engineering, and bopped around to plenty of interesting locations in Canada. And then in early 2014, I packed up my husband and 2 very young children, and we moved to Papua New Guinea, and I had the honor of leading the technical organization there through the first few years of production. So the final phases of commissioning and startup of our first operated LNG facility. So we had 3 adventure-packed years and then made our first move to Houston, did a bit of planning and commercial work in Houston. I moved to Wyoming, which is a neighboring state here. So I ran the Chute Creek facility there, where we have a natural gas, helium, and CO2 business. And then did 2 years at our corporate headquarters in Dallas before going back to Houston at the beginning of 2023. And that's when things got really interesting. I had a chance to find the far other end of our value chain and worked in the petchem industry as our global vice president of olefins, and learned all about the far, far end of the value chain before, in June of this year, I returned to the upstream and took over my job that I'm in right now. So quite an adventurous career, but here I am, and happy to be back in the upstream and happy to be here in North Dakota. I've had a chance to meet a few of you folks, but really looking forward to getting to know more of you over the next couple days.
Pam, have you been to North Dakota before?
I have. This is my second official trip on business, and actually I've been through here when we were living in Wyoming. We came and saw a little bit of the state, but second trip on business, first time in Watford City though, so.
It's beautiful.
What an incredible facility.
This is an incredible facility, and this is where we thank this industry, you know, the communities of Western North Dakota, all of North Dakota. You know, but Fargo benefits, Grand Forks benefits by the work that we do. So thank you. That's quite a trail, quite a path that you've taken to get all the way to Watford City.
Yes.
Well, good deal. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, ExxonMobil and the direction you're going with unconventionals and the work you as CEO of Denbury.
Yeah, sure. And so this has been interesting, and honestly, I've watched our unconventional business kind of evolve a little bit from a distance. This is my first assignment actually working in the unconventionals business unit, but But really, since the merger with XTO back in 2010, we've been gradually growing our footprint and our portfolio. And we're now at the point where we have 9.5 million acres and more than 18 billion barrels of recoverable resource in our portfolio. Many folks will have heard, but last year we had the acquisition of Pioneer, and that more than doubled our acreage and our footprint in the Permian. So we're getting quite big, and many folks will be aware with some of the smaller divestments that they've seen. We announced one earlier this week. We're in the process of kind of coring up our acreage, and that's really the strategy, is building a world-class portfolio of resource so that we can take ExxonMobil's scale, our technology, our talent, and deploy it in a big way, and prioritize the deployment of our capital where we've got the most advantage assets. So that's what we're up to.
You know, Pam, we had talked a little bit earlier, and talking about, you know, when we talk about the world of the unconventionals and getting into carbon capture, utilization and storage, carbon capture and storage, you know, all of those worlds, how do you see that impacting, you know, North Dakota and, you know, I guess I'm really leading to is enhanced oil recovery?
Yeah, and that's something. So I guess we're coming up on 2 years since we did the Denbury acquisition. This is a fantastic synergy, and that acquisition was done largely to grow our low carbon solutions business. And so when we acquired Denbury, we not only got the talented people of the Denbury organization, we got access to the enhanced oil recovery assets, and we got access to the pipeline network. And so ExxonMobil now operates the largest CO2 pipeline network in the country. There's assets that follow the industrial corridor down in the U.S. Gulf Coast, as well as from our Wyoming assets up to the southern border of Montana and North Dakota. And really with the enhanced oil recovery assets, we can use that CO2 not only to, you know, enhance the recovery of the critical mineral resources and oil that's in the ground there, but also to reduce emissions by permanently sequestering that CO2 in the process of enhanced oil recovery to significantly reduce not only our emissions from our operations, but to provide it as a service for other industrial players and help them reach their decarbonization needs. So it is what we see as the future, and it's really quite exciting.
I see it as the future also. I mean, I mean, this is what, you know, what it means, you know, to me is not only is it today's work and today's, you know, industry, but this is what takes us into the future. How do you, you know, look at the upstream work that you're doing, you know, at ExxonMobil, and let's bring it back to Tioga. Oh, sorry guys, Tioga, North Dakota, hometown. Bring it back. Okay, we'll broaden that a little bit. Maybe back to the Bakken to the Bakken and North Dakota. How do you see this impacting here, right on boots on the ground?
Yeah, so I mean, ExxonMobil, and maybe people know us better under the XTO brand, but XTO is actually a subsidiary of ExxonMobil. And so ExxonMobil has had quite a strong presence in North Dakota. We produce over 100,000 barrels a day today. We're sitting on some pretty prime resource, but we do want to play the long game, and we'll continue to work towards developing for the long-term, I guess, strategic recovery and maximization of value of that resource. We have plenty of potential to grow. And so what my job is going to be in this seat is making sure that we're setting up, you know, the advantaged takeaway capacity, the infrastructure, to make sure that we're maximizing the value of that resource so that I can compete for the corporation's capital and bring it here and deploy it here in North Dakota and grow our production for years to come. It's really quite exciting. There is tons of potential and opportunity here, and we're here for the long haul.
Well, let's go into that. And, you know, when you talk about our audience here, we are operators, we are service sector, we are companies that provide, you know, the boots on the ground, the men and women who are out doing this work. You know, we're the ones in this room who also, we have legislators, we have, you know, our audience here this morning, you know, we are the ones who do this. And, you know, can you talk a little bit more, how does it impact us here, like the worker, not only just the ExxonMobil, but as you employ and engage with all these service companies?
Well, I think, Watford City is a perfect example of this. I've learned over the last day or so just how important industry is to the population and to having the ability to build facilities like these. But it's that kind of continuous and steady supply, and we've all got to pull together and work together, talk about the challenges that each of us are facing, talk about the opportunity space, and hey, how can we collaborate and make this a more competitive place to grow so that we can be here for the long haul.
I look at that and I agree with you. The long haul means there's a long way to go. We do a lot of work. We're in a phase now, I think, from developing the Bakken and taking it to the next level. And that's really where the technology and the innovation takes us. I think of all the work that is done over at the EERC, Energy and Environmental Research Center, over at UND. You're shaking your head. You're
Yes.
in agreement. Talk a little bit about how does that impact, and what do you see into the future, with our crystal ball here?
Yeah, I think that the research being done, I like the word future-proof. Future-proofs our business. It helps us make sure that we're not just, quickly producing and then leaving. The nature of the upstream is it is a depletion business, and so we need to be constantly working to refill the hopper, if you will, so that we can continue to exist here and to allow the communities to thrive and build that economic growth engine for the future.
Let's talk a little bit about, what does it take us to get there? What is the technology, and how do you see ExxonMobil, broadening your footprint here, and the energy, or the work that's done in the technological space?
Okay, so I've got some of my colleagues coming up this afternoon, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but they're going to share some super cool things that we're doing in the digital space, where we're working with remote operation centers to improve our safety and our reliability performance. So I'm not going to steal their thunder, but there's a few other things, and this is maybe a little bit of a unique differentiator for ExxonMobil. Because of our multi-basin presence, we're doing a lot to learn in real time, where we're able to optimize our capital efficiency with our well spacing and cube design. And then also, because we're connected with our refining business, we have access to very low cost, lightweight proppant that helps us with the ultimate recovery of the resource. And so those are some of the two big technology plays that ExxonMobil works for in the on-cloud business.
Can you take it from that? Take it to, what would be the way you mentioned, your work in petchem, and I've been fortunate to be in some of the work that I do at the Army War College. ExxonMobil personnel come and talk about petchem and the downstream. Can you link these together for us? Here we sit in North Dakota. How do we get from the upstream work to your massive facilities, on the Gulf and in Texas?
Well, the feedstock that is coming, NGLs, ethane is the primary feed, and that is something that has put the U.S. in a absolutely enviable competitive position. Our low-cost ethane feed that feeds into the front end of the steam crackers that are all sitting on the U.S. Gulf Coast gives us a major advantage. The petchem industry is in kind of, it's cyclical, as every other industry that we work in is, but we're in a period of pretty significant oversupply, but the U.S. assets are still well in the money because of the fact that we've got the low-cost ethane feed. So it all helps, and it all fits together, and it all, contributes to a strong economy.
And how does that impact us here in North Dakota? You're basically, bringing our feedstock.
Buying the ethane out of North Dakota and bringing it down to the U.S. Gulf Coast to run it through our crackers. Absolutely.
It is, and it's not always easy to do that transport either. There's a lot of work that goes into that. You know, I'd like to shift a little bit and talk some of the acquisitions that ExxonMobil has done. You mentioned Pioneer already. We talked a little bit about the Denbury work. You know, I don't know, Denbury kind of hits home to me. I did a lot of work over the years, you know, in that Cedar Creek Anticline and all the area. Can we go into a little bit of what are your thoughts on, you know, what did Pioneer, you know, bring to ExxonMobil? Denbury, they seem to me two fabulous assets.
Yeah, and I'm going to borrow the words of our CEO, Darren Woods. He always likes to say, for ExxonMobil to consider an acquisition, we have to have a 1 + 1 = 3 or 3 or better kind of an equation. And so what he really means by that is for us to even entertain an acquisition, you're not going to see us going around and acquiring a company just for acres or flowing barrels. There has to be something more to the equation. It has to be a cultural fit. We want to be bringing in talent that allows the two organizations to create more than we would independent from each other for our shareholders and for the business as a whole. The Pioneer acquisition is a perfect example of that, where ExxonMobil brought a lot of drilling technology and capability to the table. Pioneer brought a lot of completions technology and deep Permian Basin knowledge to the table. And so the combination of our two organizations together and the synergies that we've been able to realize have really driven a lot of value for us in the Permian Basin. And again, back to the talent comment, Rich Steele, who was the CEO of Pioneer at the time, is now running all of our Permian operations. So we do it for more than just the assets. It's always got to be, you know, a cultural fit where there's an organization that has the same values, if you will, around safety, performance, and efficiency, and we bring those together.
You know, when you mentioned the safety, I think every single one of us in this room, you know, that speaks to our heart, is the safety issue. When we talk about, you know, the ExxonMobil, you know, entity and what is your staying power? You know, you have a lot of guys and gals here that, you know, this is home to us, and we welcome and love all the presence. But do you see, you know, we've known you as XTO, and now ExxonMobil. What's our staying power?
I think, and I mean, ExxonMobil has been around for a very long time. I would say we're a very principled organization, and so we will take the same principled approach to every problem that we're tackling, and we won't waver. We won't waver depending on political winds. We won't waver depending on, you know, economic challenges and things like this. Safety will always come first. We will always put the communities that we operate in first. You'll see us, and this is something that we're very proud of, just in the past year, over $300,000 have been contributed to the local communities in which we operate for emergency preparedness, wildfire response, some of the local community education benefits and things like that. So it's that principled approach. We will be a good neighbor, and that's really what allows us to be, you know, part of the fabric of the communities in which we operate and gives us that staying power. I do want to touch on, you know, sort of us being known as XTO in the past, and now with the Pioneer acquisition behind us, the Denbury acquisition behind us, you're going to see us branding ourselves more as ExxonMobil. It's no real change. It's all the same people that you're used to getting to know around the community, but bringing everybody together under the single brand of ExxonMobil as we do form this one larger organization in the business.
That is awesome. You know, you brought up, you know, the word community, and we're sitting here in Watford City. In Watford City, we have community members, we have, you know, individuals. I know I saw our mayor from Williston here as well. Last fall, we had devastating fires, you know, grassland wildfires. You know, here in Watford City, my community of Tioga was really hit hard by that. What does this mean? What does ExxonMobil mean to the small communities of the Alexanders and Arnegards and Newtowns and everywhere? How do you see community engagement and involvement moving forward?
Well, I mean, we're part of the community. Obviously, our employees live and work out of these small towns and centers. The footprint of North Dakota is so spread out such that, we're working in multiple different communities around the area, and so many of our employees were also impacted by the fires, but that's, again, because we're part of the fabric of the community, why it's so important for us to be, giving back and making sure that we're contributing to help prepare for these events in the future, and then also just respond and react to mitigate some of the impacts that those fires had.
Well, that is tremendous, and it's about the people. I don't care what we do here. It is about the
Always
people,
is.
whether it's our communities, our workforce, what it is, our colleges, our universities. I just wanted to. I look at this as just tremendous. I want to go back because there's one thing that's kind of near and dear to me is the CCS and CCUS, because I think it really, if you use the word future-proof, I mean that's pretty cool. If we go in that realm and look at where does that take the industry, and maybe not specifically just ExxonMobil, but what do you see as what does CCS and CCUS do for our oil and gas?
So it's kind of a two-pronged approach, and the way that I like to think about it is using the CO2 that would otherwise potentially be a waste stream going into the atmosphere to help enhance the recovery of the very valuable resources that we're sitting on is the first piece of it. So getting good at that, figuring out how best to deploy that recovery methodology, that's the first piece. We want to get that every ounce of valuable oil we can get out of the reservoirs. But it also gives us an opportunity to store emissions that would otherwise be going to the atmosphere. ExxonMobil is working really hard to try to figure out a business model to make that work. Our scale and the pipeline network that I talked about previously should hopefully allow us to do that. But again, it's working with various industrial players like the power plants, the major fertilizer facilities and things like that, particularly the big industrial emission sources down in the US Gulf Coast that are quite concentrated. If we can find ways to extract the CO2 from the various stacks that are going to be, otherwise just going to the atmosphere, capture that, use it for enhanced oil recovery, use it for other industrial uses, or find ways to permanently store it so that we're not being a major emissions source. That will allow us to continue to produce well into the future.
I know we're sitting here in the Bakken, but as you talk about that, does ExxonMobil, we know we're doing the work. We're doing a lot of work in, carbon capture, but the stratigraphic test wells, the characterization of the formations. Are you doing that other places as well?
We are. So, and I mean, with the large CO2 pipeline corridors that we're now operating, we're trying to find locations that will be, good storage facilities off into the future. And so that is something, in addition to the enhanced oil recovery and use of that CO2, we're also looking for permanent geologic sequestration for dedicated storage wells.
It is, and I go back to, we have termed the geologic jackpot here in the Williston Basin, and it truly is. Our prior governor, Governor Burgum, now Secretary of the Interior Burgum, used the term geologic jackpot. I love it. I mean, that's where we are, and that's what we're working forward. So when you look at that, and to me, you take the absolute natural resource, and it's not to hide it, Pam. It's one that how do we utilize this for the being of North Dakotans and for this country? Do you see this having an impact nationwide and on the global stage?
I think it absolutely will. We see this as the future, and so having good rocks certainly helps. And so taking those good rocks and leveraging them to either store CO2 permanently or maximize oil recovery, both are going to be really important. And I do think that, kind of the enhanced oil recovery is really the stepping stone to start storing the CO2 through the recovery of additional oil resources, but then also to help better understand the formation and where is a good home for that CO2 for the long haul.
Pam, you use that word good rock. When you're talking to a geologist, that is music to my ears. I agree with you. I think the potential here is fabulous. And if we can take this, enhanced oil recovery, and the utilization of that carbon, CO2, and use it for the enhanced oil recovery, the future is huge here, right here in North Dakota and other places. But so much of this technology happens right here on the ground. I see this as cutting edge, worldwide, globally. Do you agree?
I agree. The better we understand it, the better we're going to be at it, and the longer the future will be for us as an industry.
And just think, I mean, we're at, say, 12%, 14, maybe areas 15% recovery. That means, 84% of the oil is still left down underground. I mean, think about that,
We got to find a way to get after it.
We need to get after it, and we do that by having you here to help us do it. Tell me a little bit, I want to get back, your role. So let's get into a little bit about your role at ExxonMobil. I'm general manager of the Americas and also CEO of Denbury. Those are some pretty cool titles.
Yes.
I can say I'm CEO of Neset, and that'll get me, and a dime will get me a cup of coffee. I don't know. See, Denbury, ExxonMobil. What's it mean to you personally?
Yeah, so what this role entails is obviously I've got accountability for our upstream assets across all of the U.S., which is actually a fairly well-dispersed footprint. So some of our heritage conventional assets, as well as our unconventional assets, it's basically everything outside of our Permian Basin. And Rich is my peer in the Uncon business. He takes care of our Permian Basin asset. But then on the Denbury side, really, I view my role as the CEO, back to some of the things that I was talking about when we consider an acquisition, is really to make sure that we're leveraging the talent that we got with that Denbury acquisition. They have amazing reservoir engineers and geoscientists who have been doing enhanced oil recovery for a long time. They understand how a CO2 plume moves in a reservoir. And so making sure that we're taking the Denbury talent, combining it with ExxonMobil's scale, and getting the best out of both sides of our business. So that's really what I see as my role.
In the big picture, how does the ExxonMobil, infrastructure help to develop what we're doing specifically out in these remote locations?
I mean, it's again, just leveraging some of our assets. We'll be deploying capital. I can tell you this, we've got a new rig coming up to the basin starting next month, so we are going to be growing our drilling program, but just focusing on leveraging our technology at scale, and again, you'll hear a little bit more about it this afternoon, to be as efficient as we possibly can so that I can compete for the corporation's money and bring it right here to North Dakota and grow our production.
When you talk about growing production and that, you're talking a little bit more, bringing a rig in and drilling and adding, and we know how fast this goes with these, multi-mile laterals, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, U-shaped, all the different, technologies that are happening there. Is all of that happening, within the scope and the plan of ExxonMobil?
Yeah, that's the plan. And this is something, again, is the evolution of our unconventional business. And it's funny to say, within my own career, I've watched it change and evolve. We've been constantly learning, but it is relatively new as an industry. And so it's just that constant improvement and real-time application of the learnings so that we can maximize recovery and get that oil out of the rock, Kathy.
That's right, get that oil out of the rock, and let's get more of it out of that rock. There's only so much there, we want to increase that percent and everything. I mean, when we have the opportunity to talk with a group like this, I'm thrilled to be here, as you know, and I'm pretty sure you are too, Pam. This is all wonderful opportunity. Tell me a little bit, what might be your parting message to our audience here moving forward?
Well, I think you started it really well. It's an absolute honor to be up here on the stage. It's an honor to be part of the conference itself. And so I just want to say thank you for including us. I would encourage everybody to make the connections. It's not often that you get a room full of this much talent capability. It's kind of the brain trust of our industry. We need to be talking. We need to be finding new connections and new ways of collaborating to make sure that we're doing the best with the good rocks that we have here in North Dakota.
And future-proof our world.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing it right here. We're going to future-proof it. As we wrap up here, I just want to, share with everybody, a welcome to you, Pam, to have you here with us. And I think, are you spending some time out in the field?
I am. That's what the plan is for tomorrow. We're going to go to a frac site. We're going to go see some rigs. It's going to be fun.
So we get to shuck these high heels and put on steel toes and
Yes.
hard hats tomorrow?
Which is far more my preference. This is not my favorite wardrobe. I'm happier in a hard hat than I am in heels.
Man, you are singing my song. I'll have to get out on a rig any day as well. I love it. And with that, I would like to say, Pam, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, the effort. It's not always very easy to get to North Dakota traveling. So we know that you've made the effort, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's been fun. Thanks,
bet.
guys.